What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Perfectly Blended podcast. On today's episode, guess what? We're talking about the new year. It is new year plus a new plan equals a better marriage. And when is that coming up?
Right now.
Here we go. Thank you so much for joining us on the Perfectly Blended podcast. This podcast is for blended families, for couples that want to strengthen their marriage and want a brighter future. Perfectly Blended exists to break the stigma of divorce, drop the shame and guilt holding you back, and equip marriages to thrive instead of just survive. We believe all that is possible in this life is based on the power of Jesus Christ and His ability to restore us fully. Let's dive in. What is up, everybody? Welcome to today's show. It is 2023 if you're watching this live, or maybe it's 2024, 2025 if you watch it in the future. We don't really know. But if you are watching it in the first week of January, it is a brand new year regardless
Hello,
of
Marty
whenever you're
McFly.
watching it. Yeah. Hello, Morty. So we want to talk about marriage, right? Like we always do, but we want to talk about, we have a brand new opportunity, or at least we feel like we have a new opportunity when it's a brand new year. And so we really want to talk about how to have a better marriage this year. In what ways can you do that? And so that's kind of why we titled it today, A New Year plus a New Plan actually equals a better marriage. Yeah, everybody's going to get sick of it. I don't know about anybody else, but it's like we've seen like all these ads already for like weight loss stuff or gyms, like already on social media. It's like going bananas.
I liked a new one that I saw that said, New Year, New Who? I'm like, oh yeah, I like
Is that what
that.
it said?
Yeah.
New Year, new who? Like Whoville. So before we jump in, what do you got for us today? What's on your mind?
I don't know.
Nothing's on your mind?
I don't know. I don't think so.
She's like, no, I don't know. I have zero things on my mind.
I mean, our youngest just got his driver's license.
Yeah, I don't know if we've shared that or not.
Yeah.
So we're doing the old vehicle swapperoo right now.
Yep.
All kinds of fun stuff. So brand new year. Let's talk about it, right? So we have 3 things today that we really want to share with you about creating a plan moving into the future. What are the things that you can actually do? All right. We're going to kick it right off with the very first thing is you need to begin to evaluate.
Or elevate. One of the two.
Well, you need to start with evaluate before you elevate. Evaluate what?
Your marriage, like where you came over the last year. I think it's important to, what a lot of the times we tend to do because of our sin nature, I think we sit down and we want to evaluate something. We automatically go to the things that we need to improve upon. I don't know about the rest of you, but that's what I do, right? So you sit down and it's like, oh, I'm going to evaluate the previous week or the previous month or the previous year. And everything that comes to mind is the things that I need to improve upon. And yes, it's important because then you can make plans for the future and goals for the future. But you also need to evaluate what you did well, what you and your spouse did well over the previous year, and all the blessings that you guys have had in your life. Gratefulness is a huge game changer in life. It helps change your perspective and your perception of things. So I think it's really, really important that when you are evaluating, the previous year, what you both are thankful for and what went really well. And then the things that, you kind of fell on your face and you need to regroup.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, right? To figure out where we're going to go, we really need to find out where we've been. And if we can take the last year and really kind of break it down and evaluate, the things we did well and the things that we didn't do so well, then we'll have a better understanding of how we're going to prepare to move into this coming year. And let's be honest, who really does that, right? Who really is going to be willing to sit down with their spouse and say, hey, what didn't work so well this year? And that's the problem. I think we're just not willing to pour enough into our marriages, this simple amount of time really in the beginning to talk about the things that are rough or hard that was this last year. Or, this was something that we had a good year this year. Why did we have a good year? Not just by chance. God's blessings are in our lives and those things are going to happen. But overall, we really got along the last quarter of this year, things were great. Why were they great? Was our communication strong? Was I more affectionate to you, my wife, all these things. And if we don't talk about and evaluate those things, how are we going to make any adjustments moving forward?
Yeah, and I do think it's important to talk about the different seasons. So the last part of this year, basically since August until still now, but really August, September, October, and November, I had a lot of health issues going on with a really bad infection and things like that. And I couldn't help at all really around the house for a while. I couldn't even drive myself. Josh was having to take me to work and pick me up. And I think it started making me feel like a burden. It started getting me depressed. I couldn't help around the house or do things. And then my self-talk started going to like, you're just lazy and all this stuff. And it put more pressure on him. Not that he felt that way, but it did add more responsibilities to his day that he had to take on. And I think it's important to sit down at the end of the year. We're kind of coming out of all of that stuff now, to say, hey, that was a season. We're good. Like it was a thing that we had to get through together. I think we handled it really well. I do think that we handled it really well. We had ebbs and flows of the whole thing, and that was just a season now. And now we're coming out of it and we need to make sure we shake that off.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that kind of got tabled during that time was we really didn't get any alone time for Christy and I, with like our date days that we really like to try and keep on and stuff like that, and we really haven't been able to do that. So last weekend, and she didn't even know I was going to do this, but last weekend, I know Christy really likes to go to the movies. And so I text her and I said, hey, we should go see the new Avatar today. And movies really aren't my thing, but they're her thing, right? Yeah. And so I understand that's not really a date thing because you can't really talk to each other or there's no time really spent. You're just
still special to me.
In the dark facing the screen, right? But it's something that you enjoy to do.
I love that.
And so, it's
not just enjoy, okay.
It's little things like that though, right? Like we need to talk about those things. Like, did that make a difference? Did you care? Okay, great. These are more of the things that I need going into the future, into this year. These are the things this last year that were really hard on me, right? These are things that are really, really difficult on me that I need more of. And if we really want and we really care about our marriage and we want to take it up to the next level, if we're struggling in areas, we have got to be open with our spouses and say, let's sit down and let's evaluate this last year. Let's figure out some things that we can do better, or let's really pour into areas that we've done really well this last year.
And like we fell off because of the season. We couldn't really do date nights and things like that. And we didn't really have any time together. We usually go grocery shopping together. He was having to do that without me. I wasn't able to participate. So I wasn't able to participate in a lot of things. And so I think it's important now to regroup. It's gotten out of habit now of us not doing that. So now it's important for us to say, okay, we're coming back out of this season. We need to make date nights a priority. In our relationship, and all the other things will come, like grocery shopping and stuff will come back naturally. But it's important to put it back on because you kind of both get accustomed to it then. Like, oh, we haven't been doing it. It's okay. It's no big deal. We'll get to it eventually. And you really have to put it at the top of your list to at least schedule it in.
You do. And it's easy to get kind of fall into the shoulds and coulds and woulds, of things that go on in our lives. Like, Christy's starting a new job and there's a lot of those things going on. Well, I can't sit back and just say, well, you should care about these things with me, even though you have all this other distractions going on. That's an unfair thing, right? Or if it mattered to you by now, like you would still do these things. And I think it's easy to get caught up in that and say, no, we really need to sit down and evaluate and stop trying to read each other's minds and say, we care about our marriage. I care about you. And seasons change, our personalities can alter, and stress can make differences and all these things. So let's sit down in the beginning of the year, right? If we want a better marriage, we need to make sure we're planning appropriately. And the very first thing we should do is evaluate what has done well and what has not done well the previous year.
And if you and your spouse do this already, please share and talk about it, and say, hey, this is something that my spouse and I already do every single year. We sit down, every quarter we reevaluate, not that you guys don't do that on date nights and stuff, but if you're already doing this, share with the community of people in here about how that has helped your marriage, and what strategies that you guys have used for it.
Yeah, agreed. So first thing, right, is evaluate. Second thing, you need to make sure that you understand the power of execution. You need to make sure that you're executing the plan.
So if you say we need to make our date nights a priority, and then that's as far as you go, and then 6 months from now you haven't went on any dates, that's not executing. Okay, that's just talking about it.
Yeah.
So it's important, like Josh and I have tried to get really good at, we're going to make date nights a priority. Okay, let's go in and schedule the next couple right now. Let's do it right now. Let's look at our schedule. Let's schedule it in so nothing gets booked there. Because what happens, it almost never fails. In the beginning, this always happened. We would be like, okay, Saturday mornings is the no-fly zone. Like Saturday mornings is our breakfast date. That's what we used to do. And then something would come up, a birthday party or a worship band practice.
That changed to Saturday mornings.
Yeah. And we were like, well, we really don't have a choice, so it's important for you guys to go in and say, okay, it might not be able to be consistently every single Friday night. So, okay, next week, let's schedule Friday night for us. And then 2 weeks from then, let's schedule Tuesday night for us. Just schedule the next couple at a time,
Yeah. And I think that's why it's important when we say execute, we say that's an action word is what that is. Execution is an action word. You need to make sure that you're putting these things into play and being purposeful with it. Nothing like our spouses, our wives coming to us, men, if I'm talking to men, our wives coming and telling us something that they care about. And we're like, oh, yeah, we'll make sure to do that. And that's as far as it goes, because then we're like, oh, we forgot, right? What is the message that's being delivered right then and there? That you don't care, right? That it doesn't matter to us. Well, it may matter to us and we may have forgotten, but let's make sure that we have a true execution with this. If we're going to take time to sit down and actually evaluate last year, then let's sit down at that same time and put pen to paper or on a calendar and start executing some of these. Like, great, I'm going to do this, and this things by this date. Let's just put it in the calendar right now. These is making sure that I'm doing it, or that we're following up and saying, hey, was this good? Does this work? Is this making things, are you happier with my level of communication after the last 30 days? And I know this sounds very almost to the level of being high level organization, but you'd be surprised. Like if you start doing this, it's not hard to continue to do, and you don't have to be as organized and as on top of it is what we're
natural.
saying. Yeah, it becomes natural. Yeah. So it's really important though that the execution is where it's almost always lost, right? We'll sit and we'll talk about hard things, but then we actually don't do anything to carry those out. So you have to ask yourself, if you're going to evaluate it, in what ways are you actually in a powerful way taking action and executing?
And you need to talk about in every relationship. No, I shouldn't say that. So some relationships, there's going to be 2 executors. So it's going to be easier. And then in other relationships, there's going to be one person that's really good at executing, another one that isn't. So it's still at least going to help. And then in some relationships, neither one of you are executors.
Yeah.
You're both just talkers.
Waiting for each other to take the lead.
Yeah. So it's important that when you're sitting down and talking about the previous year and talking about going into the other year, you guys can do it together and just say, okay, neither one of us execute. We both suck at it. So let's drill it down a little bit. And I know, like Josh was saying, this sounds kind of like businessy, but if you really want to take your marriage to the next level, you're going to do it.
You'll get serious about it.
So it's like, okay, we really stink at it. So let's schedule our next date night right now, where we're going to go, what time we're going to go. Let's put it on the calendar right now. Let's plan it. And then as let's say it's 2 weeks from now, then the following week, it'll be like, hey, we're still on for our date. Yeah. Like you guys have to just do it together and be playful about it. And have fun with it, because the executing part is actually, I feel, the hardest part. Because we can all sit down and come up with all these great plans and ideas. Companies are notorious for this. You talk to any company or any church probably where people are sitting in the internal meetings, how many things are talked about? Like, we need to do this and we need to do this and we need to do this. And how many are actually executed and carried out all the way down throughout the organization or the church? Yeah. And it's probably about 5%.
I would say that.
So it's execution is the hardest part. So if you can get good at this, if you can get good at doing, the planning isn't necessarily the most important thing. I mean, the doing is what's important. And then as you do, you're going to get better as you go along.
Yeah. And execution is one of these things, like you almost have to look at it as like training wheels, because if you're not an executor, or if you think that you're an executor, but your wife or spouse doesn't think you're an executor, you're not an executor. And I need you to know that. Like, you're not an action taker. Oh, I take action all the time. Does your spouse think you are? No, then you're not. And so what I mean by that is, okay, let's plan together, right? Let's make a plan to take action together. Let's plan together. And that way there is some accountability together, right? And so this is moving the needle in a forward position in your marriage. You're being highly intentional. You're being very deliberate about it, and it's moving. You're taking action on that. Execution is something that's, like Christy's saying, 5%, not just of businesses, but I would say 5% of marriages actually execute on things that matter, because they're not willing to put in that extra work and put a pen and paper. Oh, I don't need to do that. I don't need to bother with that. No, you do, Jim. You need to bother doing that, right? Like, it's important. Sit down and tell your wife that you're going to take her out on Friday at 6 p.m. and let her tell her if something comes up and we have to change it, then we will. Not scratch it, we will change it. And these are things that you get better at as the more that you do them.
And Josh and I are interesting pair with this because I think he's a really good executor. I'm really not a starter. He's a really good starter and I'm not, I'm just like, whatever, it's fine. We'll figure it out. And once we put a plan in place though, I'm like a drill sergeant. Like, no, this is what we're doing. We talked about it. But then if something does come up and that has to change or to pivot or anything, I do not like that. And Josh is very good at being like, babe, it's fine. We can just redo it. It's no big deal. It's easy. It's not going to be hard at all. And I'm just like, so we balance each other out really, really well with that. And have fun with each other's strengths, and how you guys can plan things and understand whose role is going to be what. Like we already know that's how it's going to go. He's going to come up with all these great things that we could do. And I'm really going to be like, he has to convince me a little bit. And then once they're set in stone though, it's like, we're sticking to it. Come hell or high water, it's happening.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. And then if an emergent thing happened, he would be like, babe, it's okay. We can change it. And I'm just like, no, we can't. We cannot change it.
Yeah.
And he's good at like bringing me down. Yes, we can. And showing me that it's okay. It's still going to be okay. And then afterwards, I'm like, I don't know what I was so stressed out before. Everything's fine.
Yeah. A year ago this week, Christy and I went on our very first vacation with just her and I together since our honeymoon. And it required us to go. We went on a cruise. We stayed in Puerto Rico for a few days. And so it was like about 10 days long. And leading up to it, it was like she was trying to find every reason not to go.
Yeah.
Right. She's like, I don't want to fly. But not just that. It's like, I don't want to leave the kids and like all these reasons, right? Money, right?
COVID.
Like all of these things, right? But I know my wife. If I can execute enough to just take action to do it, to get there and begin it, then she's there and she's like, I am so glad. I am so glad though that you talked me into this. Like, was it not? Don't give that face now.
No, it was. But I would still
absolutely
be the same way now even after knowing how amazing it is, I would still be the same way now because
was it
of
not
the flying.
One of the greatest vacations you've ever done?
Yes,
Yeah,
it was.
She loved it. Okay, she loved it.
But the flying, you guys just don't understand. He doesn't understand.
It does. It's fine, but once we get there, the flying's over.
I'm
right?
scared to death.
Then we have 10 days where we have to fly again. But the point of it is she started trying to come up with all these reasons why no, and I'm like, we're doing it. Like, we need to do this. It's very important to us. So it's important that you feed off of each other in that way for taking action and executing something this year. So if you're going to sit down, you're going to evaluate, then you're going to make a decision on the things that need to be different or change or the same. And then you need to make sure that you create some type of execution
And don't do too much, though.
No, only pick a few things, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not trying to solve all of your marital problems all in one sitting either. Yeah, that's a good point. All right, so that's number 2. Evaluate, then execute, and then we lead into number 3.
Expect.
You need to expect.
And God wants us to. The Bible says that he wants us to live expectantly of the things that he's going to do for us. And this is a fine line. So, I mean, if you go to churches and hear sermons and stuff like that, people get very, very like confused at this because it's like, nope, it's got to be in God's will. It's got to be in God's will. And it's like, no, God wants you to live expectantly though for the things he's going to do, good things. Like, God wants good things for us. And we can believe that he wants those good things for us. And so it's really, really important that especially when you're going through rocky times in your marriage or hard seasons, that you guys truly can sit down, pray together, review the stuff that you've talked about, the gratefulness that you guys have had about things, and believe that God can heal your marriage or heal whatever it is you have going on, and be expectant of it. Wake up every day and say, I know that as long as we stay communicating with one another and we stay evaluating and executing all the things that we're doing, that good things will happen. God will bless our marriage and bless our family. And that's what he calls us to do.
Yeah, I mean, if you wake up every day and you do this and then you're like, we're just polishing a turd here, like that's all you're going to believe in. You're not going to expect something good to come from all of this. We have to have the right attitude as well in our marriage. Maybe this last year, maybe this last 5 years has been rough. Maybe it has been, okay? But God wants something great in your marriage. And if he doesn't have your heart in an expectant way, like Christy's saying, and saying, you know what, I'm going to pour everything I have in this, I'm going to expect God to do amazing things this year in my marriage, then that's not not going to be the outcome then unless you act that way. So we have to be expectant of the things that we're talking about and continue to do and work hard on are actually going to bear fruit in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
We can't go into this with one shoe in and one shoe out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We have to say, you know what? We're all in. We're expecting this to work. This year is going to be the greatest year in our marriage, and I'm going to put everything I can into it, expecting that to be that way.
And that's what you say every year, right? You say this year is going to be the best year.
Yep.
You say
a little
that,
bit better than last year.
Yeah. You say that every single year, every single day. Today's going to be a little bit better than yesterday. And that's what you have to do. And you have to train yourself to feel that way.
So, we have been through our own ebbs and flows over the years in our lives and our marriage, but I still feel that going into 2023, my marriage is stronger and better than it has ever been. And I believe that my relationship is better and stronger than it ever has been. And that doesn't mean that it's perfect. It doesn't mean that things haven't been rough or tough at times, but I feel in my heart and in my soul that my marriage and my relationship with my wife is actually deeper rooted and stronger and more bulletproof than it's ever been. And it's because every year I expect things to get better. I do. I have an expectation and I pour into that expectation. I don't bring that expectation from you.
Well, and what's so funny, though, is that we want to push against tribulation so hard, but I feel like our relationship is stronger than it's ever been, too. And the main reason that comes up in my head because of that is because of the last half of the year and everything that we went through with all my health issues and how much he had to care for me. I mean, bathing me, all of the things. It really was trials and tribulations the last few months. It was one thing after the other, week after week after week. And now that we're coming out on the other side, we are stronger because of it. And that's what we have to believe and expect in our relationships. The sitting down and evaluating and executing isn't pretending that things are better than what they actually are. True. Or worse than what they actually are. You can say, like, this is where we are. You can laugh about it now. You can talk seriously about the hard things, but then believe that you will come out stronger on the other side, especially if things are hard. And you can know that because of the war that you go through together. And you always come out stronger. You always do. So that is something that you could hang on to in the trying times. Like, man, we're going to be so much stronger after this is all done. And Josh and I necessarily didn't say that. But as we started coming to the end, we both were like, man, we are like really stronger, both individually too. Yeah. Individually and together because of the trials that we went through this past 6 months.
Yeah, and you can't lean on hope going into the next year. You know what? Maybe things will be better. Maybe my work will be better, so that'll make my marriage better. Maybe, maybe my physical fitness will be better because, I'm making a New Year's resolution and I'm going to go to the gym for 3 weeks, but maybe that will get better and that will make my marriage better. That's all the wrong way to think about it. And that's definitely the wrong approach. If we're not intentional with it and then we're not expectant of that intentionality, things don't change. They just don't. They get worse. Our growth, our individual growth, our spiritual growth, physical, mental, emotional, and our relationship with our spouse, that doesn't happen on accident, right? And Christy's saying it, it's when we're under pressure is when the diamond shines, right? And that's the truth. And so we have to understand, there's a lot going on. If you had a hard year last year, there's so many lessons to be learned, and sit down, evaluate that, sit down and then create a plan around it to execute it. And then be expectant that stuff's going to make a huge difference in this calendar year for your marriage and for you individually.
Well, we get really passionate about this stuff because if you that's watching this or listening to this later on, we talk about things like this in everything: individual growth, Christian growth, your job growth. And everyone's like, if you're not growing, you're dying. Everyone can agree on that. If you're not moving forward, you're not just standing still, you're moving backwards. Correct. And it's not talked about in marriage. Like, why does that not apply to your marriage? It does, whether you want to or not. So if you guys aren't growing and you guys aren't growing together, you're dying. You're going backwards. And you have to start applying the same thing that's applied in life in general to everything else. You need to start equating that to your marriage. You really, really do. Your marriage could move up and move up and move up and level up and level up and level up with God and with each other if you start looking at it that way. Your marriage does not take back burner. And in today's society, marriages are always expected to take back burner. to the individuals, to the hobbies they want to do, to the things that they
the
want to do,
workplace.
to the workplace, to the church, going and doing individual ministries, to friends, to kids. They always want to take the back burner, and it cannot. Your individual relationship with God comes first, and then your marriage. That's it. You have to prioritize that.
Yeah, your marriage is the most important relationship that's here on this planet. And the thing is that we don't understand is if our relationship with God is broken, then our relationship with our spouse is broken.
Yeah.
We get our relationship right with God, then we get our relationship right with our spouse. Then we can expect that things that are happening in the workplace will get better, our friendships will get better, our ability to serve the Lord in all the other ways that we can do with our hands and our feet and our mouths and whatever ways, is all going to get better. So don't go into this year hoping. Go into this year planning, knowing that a new year plus a new plan can actually equal a better marriage. Okay, as a way of review, evaluate, execute, and expect. Hone in on those three things in the beginning of this year, right now, this month, this week, today if you have to, with your spouse, and then just go out and slay this year with your marriage. Go and show the enemy and show the world that marriage can thrive no matter what's going on in the world.
And if you haven't picked a word, pick a word.
Yeah, we do that.
Pick execute or expect as your word. I don't know. Right. But Josh's word this year is conquer, and my word is sacrifice. Pick a word, that will hold you and yourself to a higher standard with God, throughout the year, and that you can have something to focus on.
Yeah. So good. All right. I want to thank you guys so much for being here. You know what? Let us know down in the comments. Shoot us a message. Anything that has to do with that. Let us know what you're planning on doing in your marriage to make it better this year. It helps other people, right? It helps other couples hearing what other people are doing, not just us, not just what we've done. We're just one small little grain of sand in this whole mix of everything. Let's hear about it, right? Let everybody know. Encourage other couples with what's going on in your own personal lives. Share some struggles so we can hear some victories along with that. Okay. I want to thank you guys so much for being here. We'll see you next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Bye.